This is Tom Bain, and this is Wine, Money, and Song. If you find the content of this channel of interest, please subscribe. And if you have like-minded friends who are interested in wine, please tell them about it. And in comments, please let us know what subjects you would like us to cover and if there's wines you want us to react to. We're going to talk about the subject. When you sit down and you have dinner, there's a bottle of wine in front of you. Did you ever think how it got there? It's travels, going all the way from overseas, how many stops it makes, who has it in their hands, and how does it get to your table? And then again, a second question is, who's making the money? Who has their hands in there making money on that bottle of wine that you have, and how is it divided up? Well, in America, we have what's called a three-tier system. And since Prohibition in 1933, because we were dry as far as alcohol went for a number of years, and when we came out of Prohibition, we controlled the sale of alcohol very, very tightly. So the states have control. Every state has its own laws. And federal, they tax it. Federal gets taxed on everything in every state. And each state has their own laws and their own taxes that they do. And it's a key thing because they make a lot of money, especially off of spirits. Spirits are taxed very, very highly. Wine is taxed less heavily, but still it is a factor in the price of wine. Now the three-tier system is this. You have the winery or the producer makes the wine and they sell it either to an importer or a distributor. Now the importer takes the wines from overseas and buys it from wineries over there. Mainly, most of the importers are overseas, and they take the wine and they sell it to a distributor. So understand, the winery sells, let's say, to the distributor. Wineries make about 50% margins. Some make more, some make less, but they make 50%. And wineries love to sell their wines directly to the consumer so they can skip the tiers. The three-tier system is winery, producer, importer, distributor, and then retailer. All right? And wineries, they sell directly, they mail it to you from the winery. The laws have changed a lot where many states allow wineries to sell directly to you. So wineries like that because they don't have to get in the way of the distributor and they pocket that themselves. They don't sell it cheap to you. They sell it what a retailer would sell it to you. So they skip the other two levels. They go direct. And wineries that do that make a lot of money. Some wineries do 75% out the back door, and that's wonderful. But if you're a big winery and you produce a lot, you need a distributor, and you need retailers, and you need restaurants. And the role of an importer goes for niches. I worked for several wine importers. I worked for an Italian wine importer, Winebow. They majored in that and also French wines. They had vineyard brands, which did a lot of Burgundies. And then I went to Chateau and Estate, which did mainly Bordeaux and Burgundy. And they would go to the estate and they would have a relationship with the chateau owners and the domain owners. And they would buy the wines directly and they would sell to a distributor, all right? Now, in New York, we sold directly, so we skipped the distributor, and we had higher margins, but most people have to go through a distributor. So, and now, an importer, what does he risk? Well, he has to buy the wine, ship the wine, take the wine, and buy it in quantity, and he has to warehouse it until he sells it to a distributor. So that's his cost, and he has salespeople, he has warehousing, inventory, those sort of things. But hopefully those wines are special, distributor buys them and then sells them. So the average margin for an importer is around 30%, but rare wines and things like that, they go 50, 75 if it's very, very tight supply. But the average is around 30%. So then it goes to a distributor. And distributors are big businesses. They have huge warehouses. And generally they have big sales staff, huge warehouses. And some of them have thousands of different items. It's a huge, costly business model. I know Warren Buffett is in the wine and liquor warehousing distributor business. You need major capital to be a distributor now. Distribution in wine and liquor is a high stakes game, and there is very little competition. The smaller distributors have been beaten out of the business by the big guys. And it's very uncompetitive at this point. I know in New York, two distributors do 80% of the business. And that is not a competitive market. That is monopolistic. And sometime in the future, things go in cycles. So hopefully the cycle, the pendulum will start spinning the other way. So a distributor has to have sales staff, as I said, warehousing, all those costs, major costs. And their job is to educate the retailer, the restaurateur, in the values of these wines. Why you should have this wine on your wine list, or why you should have it in your store. And you need to educate and sell. And as I said one other time, I worked for Gallo Wine Distributors in New York, and we were a hard-selling sales organization, and we were out there. Every time I went, I sold, and we had product to sell. All right, now distributors make anywhere 25-30%, depending, and it's all relative to certain items. If they have an item they have to sell a lot of, they make deals. They make deals with people that if you buy a big amount, we'll go less margins for ourselves, give you a better price. This leads us, the distributor sells to retail. Retailers, they have high costs. They have rents to pay. And they have sales staff. They have inventory. And they are the final step in a lot of places that people get the wine. It's like 40% of all the wine sold in America comes through the retailer. And understand that. And retailers have a lot of pressure because there's big stores out there like Costco and Total. And Total and Costco get better prices than small retailers do. They buy huge amounts of wine, and the big companies make deals. So keep that in mind, and that's like the difference. So a retailer, which basically hand sells their items now, they all have websites where they promote, and that's become more and more of a thing, where a larger part of their sales come from their websites, and especially fine wine. Now retailers make around 40% margin. 40% margin. Some make a little less, some make a little more. All right. Then we go to the restaurateurs. And restaurateurs buy either from importers or distributors. And they buy the wine, and if you think about it, restaurants have captive audience. And the sommelier, the wine waiter, whatever, comes up and makes a presentation, and you're there, and you're just out to have a good time, you're spending money, and you're captive, and you generally listen. So they're very powerful in making brands. There are certain brands that have been made in restaurants. I remember when I was growing up, Bola Suave, Bola Valpolicella, Santa Margherita, Pinot Grigio, those were all restaurant brands. And they could be very powerful in making brands. Now, restaurateurs pay rent, they have glassware, wine service, sales staff, inventory. Now, they make 67% margin. And that's whopping. That's a whopping margin. And most restaurants, the difference between being profitable and not profitable is their beverage program, and wine is a major part of that beverage program that they need to make high margins on wine. That's the Mendoza line. You have to get above that to make money. So understand how it works. Winery sells to a distributor. Let's say a bottle of wine for $25. Then the restaurateur buys it from the distributor for $60. All right? Then they sell it in their restaurant and it's $160. Now you know where the money's going. And that's how our system is set up here. And we do have direct sales now. Wine clubs and things like that are becoming more and more of a thing. And they buy from sources. Generally not distributors, but sometimes they do. They have surplus and they give them a good deal and they sell it through their club. But a lot of times they have relationships in Europe and they buy and they sell directly. That's becoming more and more of a thing. Website sales. So now you know how your wine gets on the table and who's making the money.